Hello, everyone. Welcome to Activate the Youth Vote. My name is Sinan Kassim. I'm the founder of the Kassim Legacy Foundation, which works in over 5 countries to create a sustainable and pluralistic world. And I love working with our elected officials to bridge the youth and their communities together. We've had 15 youth leaders join us for 5 weeks on panels to discuss issues concerning our generation and to excite and energize voters to get out the vote. So before anything else, make sure that you and your family have a plan to vote. If you have any questions, the 3 other panelists with me are great ambassadors for getting out to vote, so you can definitely reach out to them. Or you can go to iwillvote.com for even more resources and information. We need to make sure that our government is as representational of the people as possible. And for that, we're asking you to get involved and, more importantly, asking you to vote. So the 3 panelists with me today are ambassadors for the vote, are great youth leaders in their communities, and are great civic leaders for the nation. And I'm so grateful to have the 3 of them with me today. The first is Matthew Harris. Matthew was the co-founder of Students Demand Action at Florida State University. He also is the chief organizer for March for Our Lives in Tallahassee. He's worked in the Florida House of Representatives and the Florida State Senate, as well as a host of other accomplishments on his resume. Matthew, tell us a little bit more about your civic leadership and advocacy and what you're working on.
Sure. So I guess it started when I was a senior at Stoneman Douglas, and I founded the Politics Club there, where we hosted a bunch of elected officials, including Mayor Hunchofsky from Parkland, and other city commissioners, some state representatives, and Congressman Ted Deutsch as well. So that was kind of the launch of my involvement in kind of the civic community, as well as paging in the Florida House and the Florida Senate. Once I came to Tallahassee for school, I, like you said, organized the March for Our Lives in Tallahassee after the shooting. And we had about 3,000 people at that event. So it was a pretty good event. Mayor Andrew Gillum spoke, as well as Loran Osley, who's running for state Senate now, and a few others. And I think it was pretty impactful for me, at least. It was very emotionally impactful. And I think it was a really good event. From there, I ran for the Florida State Senate, where I served for a year, Florida State Student Senate, excuse me, where I served for a year. And chaired a couple of committees. And I've been working for a lobbyist firm on and off for the past 4 years as well. 3 years, actually, but close enough.
Those are incredible experiences, Matthew, and you're obviously very well positioned in the civic world to make a great impact and continue to make a great impact for our community. So I'm grateful that you're here, and I can't wait to hear your insight.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Next, we have Luke Saint-Genies. Luke has, again, a host of accomplishments on his resume as well. He's the CEO and principal consultant for his own consulting firm. He also has worked with the Broward County Commission with the Super Bowl committee. So that sounds like a cool experience that I want to hear about, Luke. He's also worked with the Florida State Senate. He's had time as a senior advisor for a congressional campaign and a gubernatorial campaign experience. He is on the Air Force ROTC with a Space Force Law and Intelligence commissioning track. I want to make sure I get that right. So, Luke, tell us a little bit more about your leadership and advocacy as well.
Sinan, thank you so much for inviting all of us here, and thank you for sharing this platform, with all of us. You said everything correctly. That was a fantastic introduction. I've not done that much, but I really appreciate everything you said. But yeah, definitely in my local community is something that I care for, obviously, as I think all of us do. And I was trying to find ways to be more proactive and active in that. And that was through the Broward County Commission initially. I primarily worked as a relay and a communication liaison with the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport and the commission, so establishing the commission's goals and guidelines and deadlines, and then relaying that back to the commission itself. And then a fantastic experience I enjoyed was with the Super Bowl committee, as you mentioned, that we had recently in Broward County and Miami-Dade counties. There was a lot of logistics and implementation and planning and strategy, and I, led that project actually at the airport on behalf of the commission. So that was a truly fantastic experience. But overall, just really enjoy working in my community and working with my community.
Thank you so much for being here, Luke, and sharing your great experiences and everything that you do for your community and for our country. Last but definitely not least, we have Rita Shuster, who is a great friend of mine. We go to school together, but she's also perfectly suited for this panel in particular for two main experiences that she has. One of them is that she's the founder of a nonprofit called Next Gen Talks, which is all about getting our generation to talk about the issues concerning our country and the world. And she's also the founder of a podcast called Voting Equals Democracy. Who better suited to talk about voting? And she was gracious enough to have me on one of her segments as well. So Rita, tell us about what you're working on and how you're getting more people out to vote as well.
Well, first, I just want to start by thanking you, Sinan, for having me today. And yeah, for sure. So I started Next Gen Talks in my 8th grade year, so almost 4 years ago now. And that was with the idea to kind of just get my peers involved so that they could understand the issues and their impacts on society. And I founded Voting Equals Democracy last May because quarantine had me thinking, now more than ever, it's critical that we go out to the polls and vote. And what I do is I interview local community members at both the local, state, and national level to come on my podcast and speak about their opinions on the importance of voting. Like I had you on one episode, which is great. I'm also interning on a few political campaigns where I'm going to empower people to go to the polls and vote, and I'm encouraging more civic duty throughout society.
Great, and thank you so much for being here, Rita. Thank you to the three of you for being here on this mission with me to energize and mobilize youth voters and all of our voters across the country. There's definitely a lot that depends on it, so let's get right away. The format for today is going to be conversation-based, as we discussed before, and as the previous two have been as well. So I'm going to direct a question towards one of our panelists, and then I'll pause for a bit to have the other two jump in and expand on the topic. So feel free to bounce off ideas from each other and have a great conversation. The first question is for Matthew. Matthew, tell us a moment in which you realized the importance of voting and civic engagement.
I think definitely the 2018 midterms. The Douglas shooting had happened that February. And I obviously have a very close connection to that. My sister was at the school at the time. I had friends who, were injured and things like that. But I think the movement that spawned out of the Douglas shooting kind of proved to me that the youth vote is critical in mobilizing everyone else. So I felt like in that moment where the youth went, kind of the whole country went. I think the March for Our Lives movement was such a kind of revolution in the youth vote that really kind of spawned the whole result of the 2018 midterms and what happened that year in that election. So I think that was definitely a kind of catalyst for me, at least.
And Matthew, that is an experience that definitely was tragic for our community. And it's something that was way too close to home. So if there's anyone who knows the impact of the youth vote and getting out to vote, it's those who are really impacted by that tragedy. The next question that I have is for Luke. And while I'm asking these questions, feel free, the other two panelists, to jump in and share your thoughts on the issues as well. There's definitely a lot at stake in this election. And I think that more and more our youth voters and our voters are realizing that our lives are depending on these elections up and down the ballot. So Luke, for you first, what are the top 2 or 3 issues that are important to you?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sinan. So for me, definitely regaining America's trust in governance, especially in the executive branch. The incumbent was not elected by a majority, never had a majority. So the incumbent was not a president for America. So ultimately regaining the trust of our governance, our system of governance, and how our government, deals with individuals, because every single day, as we discussed in past panels, policy that goes through both the local, both the state and the federal government affects us on a significant level, especially the youth, especially us who are in college or going towards college or in school. It affects us to a significant, extent. And understanding and having trust in who is drafting that policy, who is legislating that, and who is in fact put in office is the biggest thing. So solely, to me, the biggest problem is regaining trust in our system of governance, and that's such a problem without a simple answer, right? It's a complex issue and does not have a simple answer, but a great way to start is by regaining trust through this election, up and down the ballot, researching who your individual is, who you're voting for on the local level or for the presidency, and then continually pushing for what you want and what your community needs. So it doesn't stop there. If I can keep going a little bit, it does not stop there. We can't keep pushing this, this dream that as soon as you vote, everything is going to change. As Andrew Gillum, Mayor Gillum said a few days ago, election is only the doorway into democracy. It is not the be all and end all. You can't go and vote and expect everything to change. You have to be proactive. You have to go to local, municipal meetings, town halls, everything like that. And you have to be proactive. You have to get your foot in the door, and you have to push that door open. And that's what elections are, is getting your foot in the door.
And Luke, along this same theme of trust in our institutions of government, that has led to apathy for voters in the past. I think personally in 2020, a lot is going to change and our voter turnout is going to increase because of platforms like these and so many others. But Rita, what do you feel about how we can gain trust in our political and in our government processes?
For sure. I think that one important way for us to gain trust is to have the conversations with our family members, with our friends about what we need in society to make it better. And I know that oftentimes people say that politics is a sensitive subject. However, we need to make politics something that's more open for conversation and discussion so that we can ensure that for future generations to come, society is at its best possible level.
And this is such an important point, Luke, that you brought up. And I know that the point of this is to, of course, energize and mobilize our voters, but it would be negligent of us not to acknowledge that there are concerns about voter suppression and mistrust in our government. So, Matthew, what do you have to say about voters who may feel concerned about suppression issues and things that may be in their way to getting out the vote and being involved?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Voter suppression is real. We see it all the time. We saw it in what happened with Amendment 4 and kind of the essential repeal of that amendment after it was overwhelmingly passed by Florida voters in 2018. And we see it in Texas, putting one ballot box per county. These are real concerns that have a real impact on people's ability to vote, specifically people of color. And it's really, really unfortunate. But that being said, I mean, it's really, it would be almost disingenuous for me to say, kind of just ignore it, push through, go vote, regardless of the people who are trying to suppress your vote. And sure, we can stand here and say that all day, but it's almost like rude, right? I think what's more important is to ensure that these barriers to voting are knocked down promptly and succinctly. Whether that's in the courts or in the legislature or in the executive branch. It's just a really crucial thing. I mean, the bedrock of our democracy is that everyone is able to vote, and in free and fair elections where people accept the result and people trust, it all goes back to trust as well.
You're absolutely right, and it would be negligent of us not to acknowledge the fact that there are suppression and there are roadblocks in the way for people who may be disenfranchised and left out of the political process. We have to do everything we can, and I know the three of you are doing everything you can to make sure that that doesn't happen. And of course, the next important thing is that we not only vote at the top of the ticket, but we vote up and down the ballot. And so in the last two panels, we've had great discussions about races, which has energized voters to do more research into the great elections that are there besides just the top of the ticket. So Luke, starting with you, besides the presidential election and refraining from naming any candidates in particular or supporting any candidates in particular as well, what are some races that you're excited about down the ballot?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'd like to, congratulate both of you guys for really fantastic answers. I couldn't have said that better for everything. Definitely Congress as a whole, primarily the Senate for me. I could list some states that I'm really focusing on daily, almost hourly. South Carolina, Kentucky, Maine, Georgia, Montana are all crucial votes for furthering democratic ideals in the United States. Without naming, obviously individual candidates. Those are crucial races. Those are races that will absolutely change our democracy, no matter who the president is. And those are races that I would encourage everyone to look into. Even some Senate races are not up whatsoever. Florida is not up. No senator is up for election right now, but a lot of states are. And that will completely change the balance of how things are going right now. Passing the biggest accomplishment of the current administration was passing so many justices, across different levels of the federal government and the federal legal system. And without that kind of Senate, you're not going to get those kind of judges, or not that kind of challenge or ambiguity in who is being selected. So definitely the Senate races are my biggest concern and my biggest interest at the same time.
I would add as well that more locally, in Florida, this Florida Senate has a chance to kind of split evenly, which is the first time that's happened in a very long time, as well as the 6 Florida amendments to the Constitution that are up, some of which can have the potential to radically reshape how elections are done in Florida. And, the minimum wage issue is up as well. So those are 6 things that I'm also paying attention to as well.
I think also what's important to note are the school board elections. Just because of the coronavirus pandemic, we've seen so much change to the education system. So it's important that we see who's going in to be in office to, make these changes possible and for the better.
If I can highlight one more actually interesting race as well, in Broward County, it's the Soil and Water Commission race. Something not many of us hear of, but it's on every one of the Broward County voters' ballots. There's the opportunity to elect someone different and to keep something that has been failing in there. So obviously, without naming candidates, definitely research the Soil and Water Board Seat 5 race in Broward County. That's a very interesting race to look at, and it can have a serious effect on how Broward County deals with environmental issues, which is a significant challenge.
Well, the 3 of you didn't let us down on naming some great races to pay attention to down the ballot, and I appreciate you for doing that because it gives the voters some great homework and research opportunities to learn more. Rita, you mentioned the school board and civic education along that same theme, and this next question is for you, Rita. How can we encourage more civic education in the United States as a whole? There are many ways to approach that question. What are your thoughts?
So I definitely think that it's important that our education system really informs students at all ages about the importance of voting and being engaged within your community. And I think our school does a great job at that. We've learned about it in many of our history and English courses, but that's not the same for all schools. So it's important that we have a curriculum where students are educated and informed on the importance of staying involved. Because even if we can't vote, right, we can still get involved on so many other levels at so many other platforms. So it's important that we all do our part to make society better as a whole.
That's very well said, and it's of the utmost importance to make sure that we encourage civic education in as many ways as we can. And all of you have, in some way or another, through your experiences, been advocates for civic education because of the work that you do. It's led to others wanting to know more. And for that, we commend you. But also, Matthew, this next question for you, which is, in our quest to learn more and discuss with others and have civil dialogue, how can we encourage compassion and kindness and mutual respect in our civil discourse so that it doesn't get out of hand, and also we're able to find common ground and learn from one another.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that's something that we've been lacking over the past few years, in particular. I guess it's never always been there for sure, but specifically in the last few years, it's been lacking. I think that goes back to what Rita was talking about, civic education in schools in particular. I think the way civics is done right now in public schools, to my understanding, is you learn how many seats are in the Supreme Court, you learn how many seats are in the House and the Senate, you learn what the president does, whatever. Those are all just things that like are important, of course, but I think what's more important is kind of like a current events class type of situation where students might learn what's happening in the world and what they can do to help or get involved, learn how to vote. All of these things are really important, and I think through that and like learning those things in a shared environment with people with diverse opinions kind of will breed this sort of mutual respect that we're kind of looking for.
Yeah, I think, that was fantastically said. It's such a hard question, and I don't think it has a solution. But truly, I think another significant challenge, and something that I recently really felt and understood, was why people have the beliefs that they have. I think a lot of individuals consider that we all come from the same slate, and then we end up forming our opinions based on what we read and we write and what we see from our perspective. But recently I went to the Midwest United States, a very interesting and contrasting location. And I met family there and things like that, and I realized, hold on, wait a minute, there's actually a reason why, and these individuals are not compromising on some things. And we can't quantify, we shouldn't quantify what is an appropriate belief and what isn't an appropriate belief. So there's a reason why a lot of people believe the significantly contrasting things that we might believe in, and they believe the opposite of those things. There's a reason why, and we should really understand the root of that, and we should really realize that there's a reason why these people believe what they believe.
And adding to that, I think it's really important that we kind of deviate away from the two-party system, because oftentimes people just say, oh, well, I agree with this solution because that's what my political party agrees with. And I feel like if we promote more conversation about solutions rather than parties, it'll just promote a better end result.
Very well said by the three of you. The important thing is that we find common ground. And when people identify themselves, the first thing that they say is most likely not what political affiliation they are. It's most likely something else. So in finding common ground, it can be something as simple as what city you came from. So the important thing is that we find mutual respect and common ground. One of the things I said in our very first panel in the beginning was that we're going to show the adults on national TV how to have a respectful conversation as a generation and as youth. And I think the three of you are doing that, and I think that youth across the country are showing that example. The next question is about representation, and I'm going to turn to Matthew on this question. Matthew, how can we make sure that everyone is represented in our government and our political system, regardless of factors that they may feel limit them, right? It's like such as socioeconomic status or race or gender or anything else, but making sure that our government is inclusive for everyone.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think a key way to do that is to kind of, as I was saying before, try to stop voter suppression, gerrymandering, or both of those things are big impediments to representation in government. As beyond that though, those are pretty two big institutional factors that are difficult to get rid of. But beyond that, I think a really simple way to do that is to just encourage as many people from as many backgrounds as possible to run for office. Give them the resources to do so, the education to do so. There are some good organizations out there that do this, like Justice Democrats is one of those. They've some of the most popular Congress people, or unpopular, depending on your point of view, were born out of that organization. So I think that's a really good way to make Congress and just government in general more representative of the people that it's supposed to represent, which, you can't have a democracy with an unrepresentative government.
I think
Absolutely. Yep. Rita, go ahead.
I think it's also important to note that we should allow our diversity to unite us. So all of the different factors that we all share, I think should bring us together more than ever.
You're absolutely right. And yes, Luke, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, the sad part about that, having a military family and a track to be in the military is when we see the only recent times we've really seen the United States come together have been in times of war or conflict. And I'd love to see that in times of positivity and not of war and conflict. We can see that we can be unified, as a matter of fact. We really can. When it comes to legislation and when it comes to, just beliefs, we really can come together. It's not impossible. Even though we are the world's most diverse democracy, we are completely unifiable. We just have to find the right mechanism to do that. And I don't think anyone really has an answer to that right now.
That's very well said by all three of you. The important thing is that we do come together, we're able to have compassionate discourse, but in the end, make sure that we include everyone into our democratic process, because that's what it is all about. Making sure that we hear all perspectives. As Rita said, making sure that we make diversity what unites us, not what divides us. And so with that, I ask the next question, which is for Luke. Luke, and I'd love to hear all your perspectives on this question as well, but what advice would you have to a voter who may say that my vote doesn't matter and my involvement doesn't count? So what would be your advice to someone who would say that?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Sinan. That's a really challenging question in our political climate, I really think. Especially, I'm going to look at Florida first. In Florida, your vote matters immensely, whichever way you vote. In any other swing state, your vote truly matters. I mean, to disclaim, everywhere you are in the United States, your vote does matter. Being factual, it matters to varying extents based on our form of governance. So in a swing state, you better turn out to vote because your vote matters so much more than any other individual's votes in the United States. The driving thing for that is you should not be forced to go out and vote. You should not think of it as your only form of being, as I mentioned before, of being active in government. It's one of your ways of being proactive in government. It's not the way of being proactive. It's not your once every 2 year, exodus to the ballot box where you fill out your paperwork, you don't know who's on it really, and then you do your research the night before, and then you finally put that ticket in, and then you're pissed that everything's bad. That's not your one thing that you do every 2 years or every 4 years or every 8 years when you feel like it. It really is part of being civically involved and civically minded. So I'm going to look at it as Andrew Gillum said, the foot into democracy, and then do it because it's your role in government. It's what you have to do as an American. It's what you should do as an American. And it's the best way to find that way to change your society for the better in the way you believe.
Matthew or Rita, do you want to jump in on that question as well?
I think Luke said it pretty well. Pretty good.
Yeah, he did. I agree. I would just say that there were 537 votes that decided the 2000 presidential election.
Well, that's absolutely a great point. And Luke, I follow and ditto that, is that you said it very well. I think that you're absolutely right. It's important, and there is so much at stake in this election and races up and down the ballot. So the fact is that we need to make sure that we get as many people mobilized as possible to make sure that those differences, people are noticing those differences, and that elections can come down to those small margins. Which leads us to the next question, Rita, and then of course to everyone else to answer it as well. Do you and your family have a plan to vote? And how are you encouraging others to vote as well?
Of course. So we definitely have a plan to vote. We've had a plan to vote for a while now because of how pressing this election is. And I think it's just important that any plan somebody chooses and their family chooses, just know it's going to make your vote count. It's going to be important to this election. And whether you vote by mail, you go to early voting, or you vote November 3rd, it's very critical that you go to the polls or you mail in your ballot, you do what you need to do to make your point across and to make your voice heard. And I like to say that November 3rd isn't the day you should go vote. It's the last day you can vote, right? Early voting started in a lot of places already. So you have all of this time, about 11 days now till election day. So you have all of this time to go out to the polls and cast your ballot to make your voice heard.
Absolutely, Rita. That is absolutely true. There are so many opportunities and so many days ahead before November 3rd. So November 3rd is that last day to make sure that we go out to vote. Matthew, for the future, what steps can we take to get more youth voter participation and get more voters registered so that they can fulfill their responsibility?
Yeah, so I think something like this, which I commend you on, is a really great way to do that. Just these types of platforms and outreach are really good ways to get young people involved and to get people caring. It's what I tried to do with my politics club when I was in high school. It's what I try to do now. I'm on the executive board for an organization. Every meeting, I tell everyone to go vote and to register to vote. So I think it starts at the personal level, and you can kind of build up to kind of the macro level, where you have celebrities saying go vote and stuff like that. But I think it's most important at the personal level. Everyone has one or two people who they know will not vote unless they intervene, and I think when you scale that, it can be pretty impactful.
And Luke and I met through youth outreach to make sure that our youth and our community can come together behind causes like this. So, Luke, my next question to you is, what as a generation and as youth, what would your advice be to our youth to get involved in their communities, just like you and all three of you and so many others have done so well?
Yeah, thanks for that. And definitely, I commend you, as Matthew did, and I know Rita does, for everything you're doing. It's truly fantastic, and it is helping individuals. So really, fantastic job, and I really thank you for it. We did meet through a youth advocacy panel. I remember that, and that was a great way of getting a community together and communicating with our elected officials in that way. I am part of the youth, so I don't know. I can't speak on experience about how to make things better necessarily. But something that I really think is important is just finding something that you're passionate about. Every single individual has a passion, whether you know it or not. A significant thing for me is mental health and youth mental health in the community. I lobbied for NAMI, National Association for Mental Illness, in DC and Tallahassee, and as well as for a firm I'm working for right now in DC. And those two things, for example, really brought me into the bigger picture of policy and politics, and that your one passion is someone else's passion, and other people have other interests and goals, and you can really bring those together in a general form of advocacy. So I just say really push for what you want and what you think is best for your community, and find the outlets to do it. And by individuals like you are providing those outlets, and I hope other people would have the drive to do so in other communities as well as our own. So I really think just push for what you want and help your community. As cliche as that sounds, I think it's a really big thing that's lacking.
I appreciate that, Luke. And Rita, during quarantine, you started a podcast about voting. You started a nonprofit. So do you have advice along the same lines for our youth and our generation to get involved?
Yeah, thank you, Sinan. So I really think like what you're doing is incredible. What Matthew and Luke are doing is incredible as well. I think that if you have a drive and if you have a passion, you can definitely achieve your goals. And during quarantine, I had a lot of time for self-reflection, and I really reflected on what our country was going through, on so many different levels, right? That we were facing so many crises, and we still are. And I thought, well, how can I help? And I feel like that's a question that a lot of people should ask themselves. I feel like oftentimes people think, oh, well, I'm too young to do this, or my age is going to impact my status, but that's really not true. Anyone can make a difference at any age, and I think you just need to reach for all your goals.
That's very well said. And Rita, thank you for all that you do as well. And I appreciate those comments and sentiment. And Matthew, you also have done so much for our community and so much in Tallahassee. especially with starting the Students Demand Action chapter at FSU and so much others. So tell us about those experiences and also what your advice is for our youth.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I appreciate that. Those experiences were tough, not gonna lie. It was pretty emotionally taxing to go through. A lot, the March for Our Lives especially, and then Students Demand Action, when that chapter unfortunately didn't last very long, just the year. But part of that was because there was a shooting in Tallahassee that year, at the hot yoga studio, where an FSU student was unfortunately killed, and an FSU faculty member. But we held a vigil for them at Florida State, which was tough, but it was good. I think it was pretty impactful for her parents to see that. I would hope anyway. But yeah, I mean, as far as advice for the youth, just kind of like what Luke said, just find your passion and get involved. Talk to people about politics, talk to people about policy, read, I think is an important thing. Just stay updated on current events and just find something that, like, politics is in every aspect of life, no matter what it is. And if you're doing something, politics is touching that in some way. And, you kind of got to figure out how and like what you care about in order to make an impact.
Absolutely, and it's of the utmost importance for this generation to continue to be leaders in their community and move the pathway forward. And there's so much that can divide us, there's so much that we can see in a negative light. So, from a positive angle and from what can give us hope moving forward, which this question is just that, Rita, what gives you hope for our communities and our country and our generation to solve many of the challenges that we see, whether it's the pandemic or social justice issues or whatever it is? What gives you hope moving forward?
Thank you. So I think definitely what gives me hope is individuals like you guys who are all so passionate in the fields of politics. We're all achieving a common goal, which is to empower the youth and to make the next generation powerful because we are going to make the change for the future. We are the future. And I think that's what's giving me hope is seeing other individuals like myself getting involved and, staying informed and doing what they can to be passionate and powerful.
Great. Matthew or Luke, do you want to jump in on that topic?
Yeah, I think she put it great. I couldn't agree more.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rita, for that. And you're absolutely right. And it's important to move forward and look at things in that light as well. So there are so many issues that we're facing as a country. And there are so many approaches in which we can take to solve them. A lot of times we look at them from maybe more of a partisan lens. And of course, we know about the echo chamber, which is that if we lean one way, we usually continuously see those same views in our social media, in our media, and what we see every day from our perspective. So this next question is for Matthew. Matthew, how can we open up our lens more to see all perspectives and work across the aisle, right? Work across the aisle and be bipartisan in our approach?
Let's see. Thanks for the question. That's another tough one. Yeah, I think working across the aisle is a concept that is not really alive anymore at the federal level, at the very least. I've seen it happen at the state level, depending on the issue, of course. The less contentious issues, veterans benefits, things like that. Everyone is in favor of those things. But on the more contentious issues, meaning anything that is mildly controversial, people tend to split immediately into their partisan camps, which is frankly understandable. Each party has kind of a view on something that people tend to agree with or they disagree with. And I agree that the two-party system is eventually going to probably be pretty detrimental to the country, and we should try to back away from that. But for now, it's kind of what we have. So as far as trying to work across the aisle, I would just say be respectful, practice good faith arguments, be a decent human being, and I think people will respect you back and be decent in the same way, as long as they're acting in good faith as well, of course.
And in that lens of bipartisanship, this next question, which we'll start with Luke and then we'll work our way through the panel, and being realistic in terms of how both sides can agree. This is a hypothetical question which the three of you may have some fun with or take it to address a serious issue. The question is, if you can put together or pass any kind of legislation or policy, what would be your idea of an ideal policy that we need right now, or is something that if you can pass anything, what would that be for you? Luke, you can go first on that one.
Thank you, Sinan. As I mentioned before, my passion is mental health, primarily in youth. Among other individuals, among so many people, I had mental health challenges, and I was lucky enough to have a way out of it. And that is, in my opinion, the greatest unifier in our country and the world is mental health. It doesn't matter if you're Black, white, immigrant, you're born in the United States, whether you're wealthy, you're poor, you're educated, you're not. Every single person has mental health challenges and faces mental health issues at varying extents, and none are negligible. So there is a lack of support on a federal level as well as in our state for youth in mental health. And it's absolutely bipartisan. This has nothing to do with party affiliation. As I mentioned, if you're a Democrat, it doesn't mean you're going to have higher rates of depression than if you're a Republican. So I truly believe that is a bill that we need. It's a bill that's trying to be passed right now. It's on the House floor in a few days. But that is something I would push for passionately if I had the opportunity to do so on a broader scale, is support both in pedagogically and through financing mental health. Because since I have this platform, I'm going to discuss it a little bit further. The cost for mental health support in the United States is absurd. Even if you know that you need support and you're trying to go get support, you have to somehow shell out the cost of a college education a lot of times, solely to see a therapist to help you, or the other opportunity is federally funded. It's pills and antidepressants, which cause another challenge and another problem and are not effective unless they're coupled with appropriate medical supervision and support. So, I apologize, I went on a little bit too much about that, but in my opinion, that's the greatest unifier is mental health.
It is so essential that we eliminate the stigma surrounding mental health, and I completely agree with you. I think it's an issue that's not talked about enough, and I really appreciate that you brought that to the forefront and shine some light on that. And I hope that you're right in that there is something that happens in our policies and our legislation to push that forward. Rita, would you like to go next?
For sure. So I think that Matthew will probably touch on this one, but just being in high school, being in a school, I think there's definitely need for gun reform. We're so close to MSD and it definitely hit very close to home. I think it's super important that we have that, happen in society. And that should be at a nonpartisan, bipartisan level because it shouldn't be a controversial issue. We need to make schools safer so that students shouldn't be afraid to go to school and parents shouldn't be afraid to send their children to school. Another issue that's super, important to me is the issue on race. I think that there's so much systemic institutionalized racism within society that we definitely need to combat. I think mass incarceration is a big issue and it's very prominent within society. And we're going to definitely see that with the 2020 election, as many have lost their right to vote, due to mass incarceration, felon charges. So those two issues are pretty important to me.
And Matthew?
Yeah, actually, Rita, the last part of what you said was kind of what I was going to touch on, is just making sure that everyone who is a citizen of this country is able to vote easily, quickly, conveniently, as is their right. I think voter suppression, as I talked about before, is a huge issue and it's verging on authoritarian, frankly, how, the tendencies of suppressing the vote, minority rule is a dangerous, dangerous concept that is already here or very close to it. And I think that ensuring that every single person who's a citizen of this country is able to vote will make sure that our democracy stays afloat at the very least, or thrives at its best.
The three of you have addressed some great points, and I truly hope that with your advocacy, these pieces of policy and legislation and ideas will come to the forefront and will be established as a part of the United States. Because, Rita, you spoke about gun safety. I know that that's something that has hit close to home, and that's something that should be bipartisan on all levels. And Matthew, as you mentioned, making sure that everyone has a chance to vote. So the three of you have mentioned some great ideas, and I truly hope that whether it's because of your leadership or other youth who are doing great things, will be able to push this fight onwards even after November 3rd. And so now I want to give each of you the chance, based on your perspective, your experiences, maybe even historical trends or trends that we're seeing right now, will we be able to activate the youth vote? And so I'm going to put this question to Rita first to answer.
Thank you. So I definitely think we will be able to activate the youth vote. I'm speaking alongside three very smart individuals who know a lot about this topic and who are definitely empowering youth like myself and other people. You guys are also inspiring. And I think it's really important that there's more people like you guys out in society to help empower our peers and classmates to go vote, right? 2016, there was such low voter turnout among the youth. We should have seen more 18 to 26-year-olds voting, and we didn't. And I hope that changes for 2020 because of the passion that people like us are instilling in other people.
You're absolutely right. And I hope and I think that the youth vote may be a big difference maker up and down the ballot. Luke, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. So well said, Rita, concisely and very well said. I can't say it better than that. I really do think we are going to have a more significant voter turnout this election for youth primarily. I do see that trend moving in that direction. I think, other people do as well. I do see a trend, at least a tentative one, where more people are engaged, especially youth. But I would have like a warning. I would put out a warning out there. Something that's been affecting me significantly and kind of hurting is a lot of individuals, and I don't see this at all here whatsoever, but it's to really focus on why you are an activist and why you are caring for your community. Because I see so many on a local and a national level of performative activism and other forms similar to that. And that hurts democracy more than it helps. Whether you're an advocate for yourself solely, using others to push your own agenda, to get to a position of power or wealth, that's dangerous, that's hurtful, and that's detrimental. So seriously, reconsider, if that's the case, why you're doing what you're doing. And if you aren't doing it yet, find that power, try to find that drive to be an activist for your community, for others, using empathy as a driving factor, and just willingness to leave a positive legacy through your actions. I just want to use this to say that because it's truly something that I think is also detrimental. To an increase in youth participation, there's also an increase in negativity related to that.
And Matthew?
Yeah, so a third of the 2016 turnout has already voted, which is crazy because it's still 11 days to election day. And I think that's kind of a testament to what Rita was saying, that you shouldn't be voting on November 3rd. You should be voting by mail or early, because that's really the way that this election is going to be decided because of the coronavirus. Also, there are long lines on election day, and that's by design, of course. But yeah, so I think that's really a testament to how many people care about this election and the passion in this election. I think what happened in Parkland is, and in Santa Fe and countless other places, is driving that sort of passion among the youth vote, especially this administration's views on LGBTQ issues and on race issues and things like that, things that Gen Z very much cares about, not to mention the whole TikTok thing. But I think these are all pretty big drivers of youth passion this election.
I think the three of you are right, and we are going to truly see, and as we're seeing, Matthew, as you mentioned, youth voters and voters everywhere getting out the vote. And so, as we're coming towards the end, I want to discuss a little bit more about you, about what you're working on, and about how our communities and this country can continue to fuel you and what you're doing as an advocate and as a leader. And so, Luke, if you'd like to go first on this one, what's next? So the three of you have done incredible things up till now. What's the next thing that you're looking to do, and how can we support you? And how can other youth get involved with your platforms?
Well, thank you, Sinan. And I'd first like to thank both the other panelists on here as well. Amazing discussing this with you, another group of fantastic individuals. So truly was an honor. It really is. It's a great question, Sinan. What's next for me? Right now, I've got to deal with a few challenges, which and sadly a few other million Americans are dealing with too: college debt and work associated with that from a virtual setting. So right now, that's my biggest focus currently. But for the future, I'm on a track, the first commissioning track to go into the Space Force, a new branch. As much as I'm not a fan of the incumbent, that was an interesting creation of a new branch in the United States military, which will focus on space operations, space law, and other things like that. So I don't speak for the Department of Defense whatsoever, but I definitely encourage other individuals to look into joining the military as a way to help your nation, your community, and yourself. It's a significantly well-paying career field as a whole. Contrary to what unpopular opinion is a quite well-paying career field. It has fantastic room for growth, and that's where I am right now. So you asked me to recommend what people were to do. Definitely consider it in college. It's a fantastic way to pay for your college. It's almost available everywhere. But on the shortest scale right now, I'm definitely focusing on the few local races I'm working with and the countywide and statewide races. Those are coming to a close, and we're in that final push, that final 6 a.m. to 4 a.m. Work weeks, work days. So as you can see, so that's the final push for that. And then later in the short period of time, I will be working on new things, focusing on vote and youth outreach, similar to what you're doing. So definitely looking forward to helping you with that as well.
Well, it's very admirable and noble of you, Noah, for wanting to serve our country and being in the military. So I commend you on that, and I thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to seeing all the great things you continue to do. Matthew, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I'm pretty much just focused on rounding out college, which is kind of crazy to say, but I'm studying for my LSATs right now, taking it next month. So I plan on going to law school either next year or the year after, depending on whether or not I'm the recipient of a fellowship here in Tallahassee next year. And as far as the type of law I want to study, I'm not 100% sure yet. I know I want to do something in government, so maybe government law or government influence, constitutional law, maybe something like that. So that's kind of where I'm looking right now. But I think, like what Luke said, it's been a really cool opportunity to be here today. So thank you, Sinan. It's been great meeting the both of you. Really impressive people.
Matthew, I think you're probably the best qualified for that fellowship, so I hope you get it, and I can't thank you for being here as well. Rita, tell us about your platforms and how we can and others can support you.
For sure. So voting equals democracy will be continuing after the election. I still think it's super critical that I reach out to the youth to empower them to get involved with the community. And I just wanted to say that I'm so inspired by all three of you guys today. You guys are all so amazing, doing such incredible things. So thank you so much, Sinan, for having us. And yeah, I'm just going to continue to stay involved, keep doing what I'm doing. My main focus right now is the election, 11 days. And then after the election, I'm still going to continue doing civic engagement.
Amazing. The three of you are incredible. I'm inspired by you, and I know that we're all inspired by you. To all of our viewers, please do everything you can to support these three incredible youth and all of the youth in their missions and in their advocacy. And so, as a final push for today to get out the vote and to be involved, I'm going to give each of you a chance to give concluding remarks as we're coming towards the end. Rita, if you'd like to go first.
Thank you so much, Sinan. So I just like to start by thanking you three for being here with me today. I think we all share a common goal, which is to empower our peers and the youth as a whole. And I just would like to thank you for being so inspiring. You have so much willpower, and continue doing what you're doing, because anything that you can do will make an impact, even the littlest of things, no matter your age, your race, your gender, your socioeconomic status, your ethnicity. You can make an impact. You can use your diversity to unite with everybody and make change in society. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita, for being here and sharing your insight. I really appreciate it. Luke, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm going to reiterate absolutely what Rita said. It was inspirational. It was fantastic. I'm honored to be even chosen for this and you for even reaching out to me. So I really appreciate that. To the youth watching, that could be, I can't speak from experience again. So this is solely an opinion-based thing, but definitely look into how you can help your community. We hear it from everyone in school, and most times, hey, help your community, be a good person, get those stickers that you get when you go to school, get your service hours, but it actually helps you as a person. As long as I can remember, I've tried to help my community based on factors, that I don't need to discuss, reasons why I really had this drive to help. And I really think it shaped me as an individual a lot more than anything else in my life, truly. So try to find where you can help, how you can help, and then you'll meet fantastic people through it, and you'll really help yourself whilst you're helping others. And I don't think there's any better way to live than to live, happily, to help other people and to leave a positive impact. So again, thank you so, so much, and definitely vote now, not in a week, vote right now, and then tell all your friends to go vote.
Thank you so much, Luke, and you've definitely done incredible work, and I can't wait to see the incredible work you continue to do. And Matthew, not only your concluding remarks, but our last final push for today to get out the vote.
Yeah, again, I want to reiterate, this was a very, very cool conversation. Thank you for having me and all of us. It was great talking to the three of you. It was such a conversation that had so much depth and breadth. It was really interesting. You guys are all really, really smart. I'm excited to see what you'll will do in the future. As far as getting out the vote, just do it. Just go vote, especially in Florida. It's so, so, so important. There's so many ways to do it. Early voting is now until next Sunday. It's so crucial. This election is probably the most pivotal one that we've had since like the 1860s. So I think just do it. Just do it.
Thank you, Matthew, Luke, Rita, for being here today, for being an advocate for Activate the Youth Vote, for being panelists and discussing your perspectives and insights. It's important that everyone has a plan to vote. If you haven't already, you can go to iwillvote.com and all of the great resources that are there to make sure that you and your family are in the best position to vote. Next week on Friday, same time, 6:30 on Facebook Live, our fourth panel, our last panel before November 3rd, so it'll be a pivotal one. That'll be featuring Alex Drehos, Carly Goldberg, and Aries Prince. Make sure you tune in, and I can't thank all of our viewers enough for your support, for sending in questions, and for being great advocates for Activate the Youth Vote, as well as supporting the great panelists that we have. So again, I can't thank the three of you enough for being here. And to everyone at home, make sure you vote and have a great rest of your night.